You, after your time in San Francisco here, you've talked a lot about what that meant to you. But when you went looking for your next stops, how important was it for you in Minnesota and Seattle to find a system and coaches that were similar to what you did here?
Yeah, I think, being able to have similar systems throughout, your entire career, especially, ones that you kind of see fit, and especially with the type of skill players we have, the offensive line we have, it just fits really well with all of our skill sets. And, that was a very important piece to me in deciding kind of in my free agency where I wanted to go. But again, like I always say, Coach McDonald and the defense had a lot to do with my decision as well.
Hi, Sam, front row on your right. Your teammate Cooper Kupp yesterday spoke about how quickly the NFL can chew up and spit out a quarterback who doesn't perform up to the standards people place on them early in their career, and how impressive it was that you came through your early trials. I was wondering if you could speak about that as a broader phenomenon in the NFL, and also from the perspective of your journey when you're about to play in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, you see examples of that, all around the league and in the past. Just guys maybe not having as much success as, they feel like they should have had, or maybe the media thinks that they should have had right out of college. But I think the biggest thing is to just, believe in yourself. I think that's really what it comes down to, is as long as I've always believed in myself, and I've always had confidence in myself to do my job. And I learned a ton from the mistakes that I made early on in my career, and I feel like that kind of mindset has kind of gotten me to this point.
Sam, to your left, over here. In terms of Cooper Kupp and just the veteran presence he provides, how would you just describe how valuable he's been to your offense overall, and how much you guys may be leaning on his experience getting to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak highly enough of Coop and what he's meant to our offense, not only our offense, but our entire team. The mindset that he has, the way he leads by example. But if he does say things, he's one of those guys where the entire room is dead silent, and then they're super focused on what he's saying, because we know that he doesn't waste his breath. He's always going to be able to say something very, very mindful. And for us, it's speaking for the players, but also the coaches. I feel like he's had a huge impact on all of us in that building, and we have a ton to thank for Coop and kind of what he's brought to all of us here in Seattle.
Being here, being here, do you ever reflect on those early stages in New York, and what did you take from that experience?
Yeah, I think just learning how to flush bad plays, flush bad games. Always at the end of the day, no matter if I had a bad game or a bad rep or a bad series of plays, I always was able to wake up the next day and be able to move on. And I think that was something that I always learned. And I feel like as a young player too, early in my career, I was really hard on myself. After a bad rep or a bad practice, I would let it kind of affect my attitude a little bit. And I think just being able to have a great attitude all the time and kind of have that, all right, that happens. It's football. We're not always going to be perfect. I think, Jerry Rice has a quote, I'm just going to paraphrase it, but he never had a perfect practice or a perfect game, and that's kind of the mindset that I've always had, after my first few years in the NFL was it's not always going to be perfect. That's why everybody loves this game, and people call it some of the best reality TV there is, because, nothing's always perfect, and it's about how can you move on from mistakes to continue to better the team and better yourself. And that's how I've kind of had that mindset, and I feel like I learned a ton from my early years with that.
Sam, to your left along the wall here, in talking to a couple of your coaches, they feel like Drew Lock, is kind of the glue a little bit in that quarterback room, and he's pushed you a lot just kind of mentally this season. What have you seen from him kind of in that regard, and does his journey, do you feel like, mirror yours in some way of what it could be? No doubt.
I think, Drew is one of the more talented guys I've been around in throwing the football. Me and Drew go way back. We were roommates at the Army All-American game, and we knew each other from the Elite 11 camp and just being in the same recruiting class. So, just being able to spend time again with Drew and reconnect and just, just how close he brings everybody. He's just such a great presence to have in the locker room and in the quarterback room especially. And he's so smart. He's going to bring up things that I don't think about, that the coaches don't think about. And yeah, he's a brilliant guy to be around. And again, like I said, he's super talented. So I know whenever he does get an opportunity, he's going to shine.
Sam, second row to your right. You've obviously been to a Super Bowl in a backup capacity before. What did that process teach you about handling this week in a starter capacity?
Yeah, I learned a ton. I think the biggest thing is just trying to keep the routine the same, and that was something that I was able to ask Brock a little bit about during that process of kind of, are you feeling it? Are you a little tired? And he said, no, I take it one step at a time, one day at a time, and do the whole media and do, all my obligations and everything I need to do, but continue to keep the routine the same. And I think the biggest thing too is early in the week, like these last couple days, I was able to get a lot of sleep. And I think that's huge because as you get closer to the game, nerves and just your mind might start thinking about the game and things that can happen. And, you're going to bed a little later, you got to wake up earlier. So I think just, getting as much sleep as I possibly could these last couple days, which I did, is going to help me later on in the week.
Sam, to your left, the resurgence in the run game in recent weeks, how has that affected your performance and the overall offenses?
Yeah, I think, the way that our offensive line and our receivers, our tight ends, and our running backs have been able to communicate with each other and grow with that chemistry has only helped us a ton in the run game. And, we're going to continue to meet with each other. We meet with each other once a week on run game stuff just as players and get guys communicating in the room on certain looks that we see from the defense. And, it's just great. It's great to hear the guys communicating and gelling with each other, messing around with each other in the hallways and stuff like that in the hotel. There's a great chemistry going on, and I think that has a lot to do with kind of our success that we've been having in the run game, in the last few weeks.
Sam here on the right. You said earlier in the week, I believe it was last week, that going against this defense, it made you guys better as an offense. Your defense, the Seahawks, that is. What about that unit was so difficult for you guys to go against all year long, and how has that kind of played out in your opinion during the regular season? What made that unit so good? Yeah,
I think it's a few things, right? I think it's Coach Mike and the scheme, how the players play in that scheme, and how smart our guys are. Like the football IQ that our defensive players have. They understand in certain coverages, all right, like we might not be able to, hold our shell, as much as we can. We need to get to our spots, but in certain pressures, and maybe it's a third down, or maybe like a short yardage type situation, we're able to hold our shell a little bit longer and wait till they snap the ball. So just those little things. And, there's just so many smart players on that defense, and I think that's what makes it the toughest is how smart they are and understanding just the little nuances that come with playing defenses and also what the quarterback's looking for. I feel like they're very smart with what we're looking for as a quarterback and the center as well with protection. So, yeah, they just do a great job and they make it really hard on an offense.